All right. Told you we'd be back. You know, we find ourselves in a time and in a position where we are constantly bombarded with these arguments and these issues that we're not all in unified positioning. There was a recent poll out there that separates and compares the idea of the Libertarian principles and the Tea Party principles, and how most Libertarians don't agree with Tea Party principles and vice versa. I'll put a link to it up in the bottom of this story so that you can read it yourself. But I've got to tell you, my concern with it is not necessarily that we should even care what polls say, because it's really not about what others think. It's about what do we as Americans want for ourselves. You know, the desire by the manipulators in the nation, and that is the press, and it's those in power who want to divide and conquer, and that is their principal game. That's their principal goal. They conquer by division, and that desire and attempt to divide us has reached unbelievable heights. And irrespective of what pollsters do to manipulate questions so that they get the desired answers they want, so that they can hold that up as empirical proof, I got to tell you, I don't really care whether U.S. libertarians identify with Tea Party members or not. The article says most American libertarians do not consider themselves part of the conservative Tea Party movement, despite public perception that the two political groups are linked. Libertarians generally support maximizing individual rights and minimizing the role of government, and it differs sharply with the Tea Party and religious conservatives on issues like abortion and decriminalization of marijuana, etc., etc., etc. You know what? How about a unified principle of constitutional government? How about the unified principle of self-governance instead of central planning? How about the idea of actual unified loyalty towards our nation instead of abdicating that to and our sovereignty as a nation to the micro-tyrants over in the United Nations? How about fiscal responsibility? Everybody can get behind that. How about honor? That's a word that you almost never see in use anymore. How about integrity? There is no integrity anywhere. Look around you. Your political leaders lack honor and integrity. They lack honesty. They lack the ability to be truthful because they've compromised and sold themselves out. They're not loyal to our nation when they're sitting there discussing whether or not they should sign another United Nations treaty. Sponsored, by these tyrants in who run the United Nations. The United Nations is a club of dictators. Who are they to determine what we should or shouldn't believe and what our nation should do? I don't want to subvert any of our destiny to them. And I don't think whether you're a Libertarian or a Tea Party member or a Patriot, that makes any sense to you. This poll goes on to say 61% of Libertarians don't identify themselves as part of the Tea Party. Truthfully, labels are what they use to separate and divide us. Black and white and illegal and versus legal and gay versus straight and male versus female and pro-abortion versus anti-abortion. See, this is all propagandist sleight of hand. They keep your attention on that movement while you're missing the real focus of the show. Then they use a label like, fiscal conservatism. Well, guess what? First of all, the definition of fiscal conservatism is so subjective that, people who agree on it could argue about it. The truth of the matter is, all of this is designed to do nothing other than keep those people who are disenfranchised from both the Democratic and the Republican Party from causing a rout in the next election. Because the duopoly system cannot afford to have the masses recognize them for what they are. And irrespective of whether they have a D or an R after their name, the simple truth is this. Their ultimate goal is your demise. And they will keep around only enough of us to meet and cater to their needs and to assuage their need for power and ego and rule. And outside of that, the rest of us are just, frankly, in the way. So whether you're a Libertarian or you're a Tea Party member or whether you are a constitutional member of the Constitution Party or you're an independent, trying to label you and compartmentalize you is exactly how you will fall prey to their manipulation. It's funny how in this article they keep harking back. Libertarians tend to favor Republicans. Why is it that everything has to be tied and related back to the Republican and the Democratic Party? And how you dovetail in with their thinking? Has the Democratic and Republican parties served us so well for the last 150 years that we should even want to be associated with such a pariah? Have they? Look where we are. They've had a 100% lock. 100%. Do you realize that there has not been a libertarian or a constitutionalist elected in the United States in 150 years? So what have we gotten for our 150 years of loyalty to the Democratic and the Republican Party? But the press, boy, they just want to make sure that you see no other solution other than picking the lesser of two evils. And as the electorate, we get tossed back and forth like a tennis ball. For a few years we're Republican, then we're a few years we're Democratic, then we're a few years where the nation is Republican, then we fall back onto the Democratic game. But the truth of the matter is, We always march unerringly towards the cliff of self-destruction. The truth of the matter is, those parties have betrayed our nation and betrayed their constituents and betrayed the voter and the citizen for the last 150 years. When you ascribe to the party's need, and when you are willing to sell out the people who elected you and who you owe a fiduciary responsibility to in favor of party goals, tar and feathering is too good for you. And I don't care what party you're a member of. I can tell you this. Tea Party, Libertarian, Constitution Party, they don't even address them in this argument. But I want you to read this. Because I want you to read it with your critical thinking hat on and turned on, powered up. And understand what they're trying to do. But the truth of the matter is, the Libertarians and the Tea Partyans and the Constitutionalists, they agree on a lot more than this article would have you believe. How about just living under the principles of constitutional government? Libertarians and Constitutionalists and Tea Party members all believe in that. You know why? The Libertarians don't profess to want a constitutional restoration, but yet they call for it in everything that they do. The Constitution offers the maximum freedom and the minimum government. That was its goal. That was its promise. Self-governance. Self-governance is a prerequisite of constitutional government. Self-governance means you don't need somebody to tell you to put on a seatbelt or what to eat or what to drive or what to wear and what to... How about self-governance? What's wrong with that? Self-governance comes from, and it's the fruit of, self-responsibility and self-reliance. That's why they don't want it. Because both parties are dependent upon your dependency on them. How about a basic framework of loyalty to our nation, first and foremost, instead of a party? How about the principle of being fiscally responsible? That's not a party issue. You don't spend more than you take in. That's universal rule of law, like the law of gravity. You cannot print money from nothing. You cannot spend your way out of debt. How about honor? How about honor to your principles as an individual and your own beliefs? How about honoring your religious beliefs? How about that you profess, by the way, that you wear on your sleeve? How about honoring your nation? How about honoring the principles that your parents and my parents fought and died for? How about honoring the principles that are part and parcel of the document that gave us the ability and the capacity to build that which has clearly been the greatest nation in the history of mankind? Single-handedly, the United States of America has dragged the entire planet kicking and screaming out of the dark ages. Our ingenuity, our money, our generosity, our leadership. We're the ones who did that. How about having some integrity? Integrity is defined as being what you profess when nobody's looking. That's a principle that's lost in this nation. Who are you when no one's looking? The truth of the matter is, unless America is willing to go back to these basic concepts, self-reliance, I'm in charge of myself, and I am the only person who can make my life successful. And I don't need government handouts to make me dependent and lose my edge like a dull blade. So I can wallow in my own victimhood. That's the betrayal of the promise of life. So I don't care whether you label yourself one thing or another. And when you hear those labels being tossed around as a division tool, as the ring of the division bell, be aware. Be cognizant. Be situationally aware. You are being played. Have the courage of your convictions, believe in what you believe in, and be strong in it. Know where and when you obtained your ideas and your opinions and your belief systems, and stand by them. Do not be a tree in the wind of public opinion that is blown to and fro. Weakened by every storm that comes along. The truth is, if we're going to restore and save this nation, we have to stand up and be counted. We have to stand up and be fearless in the face of the utmost danger. We have to be fierce in our determination to save this nation. Not just for our own lives, but for those of our progeny. I mean, what parent doesn't want the best for their child? But we are not willing to be courageous. And that must change. We must be willing to stand up and face danger. We must be willing to stand and speak, even when our voice shakes. Even when your voice shakes with fear. Stand firm and stand your ground. Is your life so dear, or peace so sweet to you, that you would willingly stand and place your hands in chains, guaranteeing that for all of your posterity and all of your progeny? Do you value peace and that much? Do you value ease to that extent? I don't. I don't. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Ivins. I am your host. I appreciate you staying with us this morning. We'll be back tomorrow morning. You can catch us on the web. You can find this and every other program that we do posted up there. Lots of stories and articles. But boy, America, it's time to wake up. It's time to arise and be counted. Be fearless, be fierce. Be courageous. And speak even when your voice shakes. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.